Thanks for visiting Buffzone. My name is Kyle Ringo. This is Neil Welk. We cover the University of Colorado football team for the Daily Camera newspaper. We're well into spring football 2009. In fact, the spring game is this Saturday at 1 p.m. at Folsom Field. Neil, it's like the 287th spring game for you. What are you expecting?
Well, I'm expecting that both defense and offense will show up, Kyle. And hopefully
Wow,
we'll see. Yeah,
that's a bold prediction.
I know, you
right
know,
off the bat. I like that.
I think they'll both be there. Hopefully we'll see 10, 12, 15,000 people at the game. And I think you're going to see what the trend that's been most of this spring. They're continuing to work on their passing game. I think they want to, get obviously a lot of work for both quarterbacks. They're going to try and throw it downfield, work in as many, passing plays as they can. I think they're starting to feel comfortable with their running game, but I think they're still more concerned about getting that passing game up and running.
And they should be. They have two scholarship wide receivers who are going to participate in this game, and that means a lot of balls for walk-ons, a lot of opportunities for guys to prove themselves, and probably a lot of balls for tight ends and running backs as well. But I guess a lot of people are probably going to be thinking and curious and wanting to know, are we going to know who the starting quarterback is at the end of this game?
No.
Why not?
No. Well, how can you know? I mean, I just think they're far too close. The competition has been very close all spring from the practices I've seen, the two scrimmages. I think it's a very close competition between Tyler Hansen and Cody Hawkins, and I think that they're going to need a week or two next summer when fall camp begins to sort this thing out and get a starting quarterback.
I agree. I mean, the interesting thing about it is when spring ball began, coaches were saying that they would like to identify a starter so that person can kind of take control of summer workouts and all the player organized activities that the team does together throughout the summer. But I think Tyler Hansen and Cody Hawkins have kind of thrown a wrench into that plan by both performing at a good level. And I also think that both of those guys can kind of be leaders and lead the team together. They're both mature enough to do that throughout the summer.
I don't think either one of them has the ego that says I have to be the guy in the summer.
Right.
I think like you said, they both can take part in the summer drills, and I think they're very comfortable with each other. During the off season, you'd drive up to CU and you'd see them walking down toward the bubble to throw together, and they were always together. They practiced together. They seemed to get along well. And I don't think the coaches are so worried about a starter because I think they're going to use both of them. I still have this feeling. You're the one that asked the question to Hawkins after the last scrimmage, and he said, yeah, we probably will. And so I think that you're going to see Colorado use both quarterbacks in some fashion, some mode. And so I don't think the coaches are quite as worried about naming that starter as they might have been a year ago because I think they plan on using them both.
One thing you get with Tyler Hansen is you get a guy who runs around a lot. Hopefully he won't do that quite as much as he matures as a quarterback as he did as a true freshman last year. But the thing that got me to thinking about that is if Tyler does run around a little bit, he's opening himself up to maybe an injury.
Maybe, exactly.
And so it just kind of makes sense to me that at some point this season, whether one of those guys comes out and starts the first 5 games or whatever, but at some point this season, I'm expecting that they're going to need both of those guys. And maybe it turns out that they need them both throughout the season, but I think they're both going to play in 2009.
Yeah, as a friend of mine said, Tyler Hansen still has happy feet and Cody Hawkins still doesn't have any feet. So So I think they're going to need them both. I think they both still bring some strengths to the table. And for people that are just dying to have a starting quarterback, I think they're going to be disappointed because I think that you're going to see them both. And what people have to realize, there's a lot more to this team than the quarterbacks too. I mean, you talk about the running backs. I think they've got great depth at the running back position. I think they've looked good. All their guys have this spring. Tight ends have looked good, and I think the defense has looked very good at points. The linebacker depth has been terrific. So give me 5 things that I'm supposed to watch Saturday.
Well, I mean, obviously the quarterback thing is one. Then you can watch both the lines. The defensive line was a big question coming into spring. Just a lot of inexperienced guys there and younger guys there all trying to prove themselves and earn playing time. I think it'll be interesting to see how often there's 4 or 3 defensive linemen on the field next fall. The offensive line coming together under a new position coach in Denver Johnson. It'll be interesting to see how they're coming along. I think they're making progress there, and you know, they're coming together, but I don't think you're going to see the real brutish sort of running game develop here until, you know, maybe even a few games into the season.
Yeah, I think you're right there, and you still got two more things that I'm supposed to be looking at, but I'm going to interrupt on your offensive line there. I think you're right.
Everybody's going to be curious to see how the kicking game goes. I mean, last year was a pretty up and down year, mostly down in the kicking game, and people are going to want to see Eric Goodman make field goals. You know, a couple years ago, that's all the Colorado football team did in the spring game was make field goals. And now people are actually going to want to see the field goal kicker, you know, prove himself in the spring game with people in the stands watching, and we'll see if that happens. And then the last thing you're going to want to watch is that nobody gets injured. This team was just brutalized with injuries last fall. And, you know, they've had a couple of guys go down this spring, and you want to get out of the spring game without any significant injuries.
Two things that I want to watch on Saturday. I want to see the defense. I want to see the secondary. In particular, I want to see the corners. I think they've got some great corners. Greg Brown has had a patchwork secondary for the last couple of years here, and I think he actually has players at every position this year. They're going to be young. He's
kind of had a patchwork secondary throughout spring ball, just with guys recovering from injuries and guys who have, you know, pulled a hammy or whatever. Throughout spring, he really hasn't had a complete group of guys.
Yeah, and he still is going to be missing some because, Polk is not playing safety yet,
right.
And he's really counting on him to come along next fall. I was talking to him the other day saying they really expect him next fall to make a contribution, you know, even in nickel package, dime package, something like that. And the other place is linebackers. I mean, if you're Brian Cabral, you're loving life right now because you have depth at linebacker, and I think that the linebacker core is going to be a huge part of that defense next year. And if you pay attention to the linebackers and see how they mix them and match them, and they've got different guys playing, you know, like you wrote today, Jeff Smart playing in the inside is the same place as Sean Moeller. So there's a lot of great things going on there, and so I think this is a fun. This should be the best spring scrimmage that under Dan Hawkins yet.
Yeah, I don't disagree. So I guess come back next week, and
I got one more question for you.
Okay.
Who's your starting running back? September 5th, Colorado State, Folsom Field. Who's going to be the first tailback on the field for the Buffs?
I would say that depends on what the first play is. Because Dan Hawkins and Mark Elfrich and Eric Keesaw, this offensive staff is, you know, very oriented toward game plan and personnel groupings. So I honestly think it depends on what the play call is.
Who's the best tailback?
Darryl Scott.
Okay.
All right, so come back next week, and we'll talk about the spring game, and Neil can wrap up, what was it, the 287th edition?
I think this will be 286. I missed one. I think I missed the 1961 spring game.
Wow, what were you doing?
I can't remember. I wasn't around for that one, though.
That's all you need to know. Straight from Neil Welk.